Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting session of DevToberFest 2024. We are thrilled to see that many of you have already reached Nerdvana stage, and for others who are almost there, you still have 4 more days to go. Before we start with the session, let me remind you about the DevToberFest page in SAP community to know more about the various activities for DevToberFest to gain points for the grand prize. This is week 4 of ABAP Cap Mondays, and this session is about SAP Business Client and SAP GUI. The journey continues, presented by Sandra Time and Ralph Research. Welcome, Sandra and Ralph, to DevFest, and now over to you.
Yeah, hello, all of you. My name is Ralph Research. I'm going to talk about the SAP GUI part of that part, and afterwards, Sandra will jump in doing the business client part.
So don't talk too long.
So what we talk about today is I will start with the S/4HANA UI strategy and give a glimpse overview of the SAP GUI family. And then, as I said, Sandra will talk about business client, web zone integration, and today and the future outlook of business client. So let me start with S/4HANA UI strategy. So why do I talk about the S/4HANA UI strategy? Well, first of all, that is I would say, more than 90% stakeholder of the SAP GUI and business client UI technologies. That means, whatever we do is influenced by S/4HANA as our main stakeholder. And we have to align our strategy with their strategy, and that's because that means their strategy is very important to us. And UI strategy of Fiori is, or S/4HANA, the Fiori UI strategy of S/4HANA is having different UI technologies that came over the years integrated under one UI paradigm, UI design paradigm, which is called Fiori in SAP. And all the UI technologies that are running in there have to fulfill the guidelines of the Fiori, so that in the end, your end users don't even see or don't even recognize what UI technology is actually used by that application that is currently running, and they shouldn't care about that. So the role-based navigation, which is the central part of the S/4HANA, that is gives you predefined paths how you navigate through applications. So let's say you start with a transaction that displays all your orders, and then you drill deeper into one order. That means you probably start with a UI5 app that shows you all the orders, and then you click somewhere in there and you see a different screen from a different application. Maybe if you click into a details of an order, you probably end up in a classic UI in a SAP GUI transaction. But you shouldn't recognize that. So you should navigate forward to the SAP GUI transaction, and if you go back, you should be back in the application where you started from. And if you navigate forward within the SAP GUI transaction, you should also end up in the correct application, in the correct technology. And for example, if you're in the details of an order and you click on the details of a supplier or of a customer, that is a different transaction or a different UI5 app. And you should navigate back and forth of that. And actually, we're doing this like that for now 25 years about. It was about 1999 when SAP released the first web-based UI technology. And over the years, over the past 25 years, there were a lot of technologies coming and going. At the moment, we have more or less 3 of them which are active in S/4HANA, and that is the classic SAP GUI transactions, WebDynpro for ABAP applications, and the UI5 applications, what most of the people just call Fiori Apps. And all these 3 technologies have to be able to navigate back and forth. And that is a challenge because almost all customers, at least all I know, are using a mix of that. Most of the customers still use the SAP GUI for Windows, and but also have a lot of UI5 apps, a lot of Webtoon Pro apps, and some of them have used something to integrate all of that into each other. In the past, that was massively used for that was the Enterprise Portal from SAP. And that as Enterprise Portal had one specific feature that allowed you to create a link within the portal in a browser. And if you click that link, there was an SAP GUI for Windows opening, starting that transaction. But this one only worked in one direction. So you could only start the SAP GUI from the portal, but you were not able to start another UI5 app or Webtoon Pro app from the SAP GUI backwards. And also it was not possible to transfer data back to the application which was calling you. So let's say you started drilling into details and did something there, and that what you did there is an information for the application that called the SAP GUI. It was not able to pass that information back to the application that was calling the SAP GUI. And those are the problems we're facing today. And by the way, the Enterprise Portal is more or less end of life. And that's why also a lot of customers now looking for different opportunities. And what we have these days is Fiori Launchpad or SAP Build Workzone as an integration platform where you can integrate all of that into it. But still we have the problem with the SAP GUI for Windows, because you cannot just call a Windows application out of a browser, and especially not going back to it. So it is still possible to call an SAP GUI from Windows from a browser. I mean, we did that in the Enterprise Portal, so it technically is possible. But there's still no way back. And that is what the Business Client is all about, integrating that SAP GUI for Windows into that scenario. That's what Sandra is talking about later. So yeah, well, what do I want to say? Yeah, that's more or less all the story, and that leads me to my next part, and that's the introduction of the SAP GUI family, because it's called the SAP GUI family because there's not only one SAP GUI, we have actually 3 of them. I have talked a lot about the SAP GUI for Windows, which is still massively relevant for on-premise installations. So if you have your SAP system installed yourself, that is the GUI you probably have, I would say, for 90% of the customers that is used on daily tasks by your employees. But we also have an SAP GUI for HTML, which is running completely zero footprint, also in a browser. And we have an SAP GUI for Java, which is mainly used by Apple users, by Mac users, because it's running natively on Linux and Apple, and also on Windows. Yeah, now you could ask if there is an SAP GUI for HTML, all problems solved. Unfortunately, SAP GUI for Windows brings a long history. And if we take our time machine back to 1999 and go to the Sapphire, which was in 1999 in Nice, and we will walk over the shop floor, and we will see dozens of companies providing solutions as ABAP enhancements, but also custom controls and all that stuff that you could install on your Windows computer that was integrating into the SAP GUI for Windows and working together with the SAP GUI for Windows on the Windows platform to fulfill specific tasks. And the closer you get to the actual work zone, to the warehouses and the production plants and stuff like that, it is very likely that you find in the industry, especially for larger customers, I'm pretty sure all of them have something like that, where you actually need to integrate some hardware. And this is very challenging for SAP GUI for HTML, because in the browser there are things you just can't do. It's just not possible. And for example, one prominent example is the integration for CAD systems like AutoCAD. So if you have AutoCAD integrated in your SAP GUI for Windows, you can't just do that on SAP GUI for HTML. But also we have still some Office integration part, which is only running in SAP GUI for Windows, and a couple of other things. So there's good reasons to stick with the SAP GUI for Windows and not completely move to the SAP GUI for HTML. However, we are working hard on filling the gaps in between those. So let me start. I don't think I have to introduce the SAP GUI for Windows, but just in case, SAP GUI for Windows is the SAP GUI. It used to be SAP GUI for decades because it was the only one we had. And most people still only call it SAP GUI, or many customers I stumble over actually call it, this is SAP. So if they say go to SAP, they actually mean use the SAP GUI for Windows to do something. So we have an SAP GUI. The current version is currently 8.00. That is around, since a while, that's 1.5 years already, I guess. A short list of things that we've introduced with that. And just to make sure that I will not get 1,000 of emails afterwards that asking me, oh, is 8.00 now the last version, because we haven't seen an outlook. I give you an outlook on the next version of SAP GUI for Windows, which is supposed to be 8.10. And as you can see on that small screenshot open here in the upper corner here, it's still a way to go till we are going to release that. And since it's more than a year, that list is probably not final and is very likely to change over the time. But I still wanted to give you a glimpse of what we are working on in development. And one very important thing is you probably have recognized that SAP is using currently a theme that's called Horizon. And the only UI technology that isn't supporting the theme Horizon at the moment is actually SAP GUI for Windows. And the reason for that is, I said it's decade-old software that is maintained, and currently there's still a lot of work to do to implement the theme, and that is very inefficient since we have a new theme every other year. So that's why we're currently redesigning the rendering engine of the SAP GUI to make it possible to do a theming of the screens like you are used to have it in the browser. So if we finish that, you will be able to consume also your theme designer themes in SAP GUI for Windows, create your own themes and all that stuff. And we will be able to very quickly adapt newer themes. So for the time being, I have to shift you with the Horizon theme to the next version, which is, as I said, still over a year to go. And of course, we are also working on usability improvements, enhanced keyboard support, and all of that. We know that very, very many customers, or very, very many users out there are working in SAP GUI for Windows like 8 hours a day. And if you're working in an application like this all day, then over time you learn the keyboard shortcuts because they're simply much faster. And this is the feedback we get mainly from our customers, is that keyboard support is essential for them. So you don't want to grab the mouse and click 5 buttons when you have one keyboard combination that is doing the trick. So we're still working on that. One thing we're also going to change is that we will be able to cache all kinds of configuration files, which is helpful, especially if they are on a network share, and for whatever reason that network share is temporarily not available. So that you can still use the last configuration file that you downloaded from there and have it in the cache. And beta program for SAP GUI 8.10 will start somewhere mid next year. And yeah, if you're interested, drop me an email and I'll forward that to the guys who doing the beta program then. And once again, that is all in the far future and likely to change. So a few words on the SAP GUI for HTML. For those who don't know the SAP GUI for HTML, it is a web-based rendering technology. It is completely built into the backend system, into the ABAP server. So you need nothing but to activate it in transaction SICF. And then you can open the browser and access the SAP GUI for HTML. You can run it standalone, you can run it in a Fiori Launchpad, you can run it in Build Work Zone, or wherever you want it to run. Yeah, it's running completely zero footprint. And yeah, that's more or less to say about it. It's very easy. We're supporting the main client platforms, the browser platforms, that SAP is also supporting on all the other UI technologies. So no big surprise here. And a short list of innovations. I have listed up what we did in the last, let's say, 2 years. Pretty new is we're currently working a lot on Office integration. So one thing we did is that there is a possibility to, well, let me do the other way around. Actual integration is very often based on OLE, object linking and embedding, Microsoft technology, Windows only. So this is not working in the browser. And if you have an application which is based on that, it cannot run in SAP GUI for HTML. So what we did is we cannot implement OLE in the browser. That's just not possible. But what we could do is we found a way to make an integration for im and export of Excel files, which is directly importing and exporting out of the backend system. And it is not completely out of the box. There is a minor coding change you have to do on your application, which is using that OLE, but it's only a one-line change. And if you have a look at our community pages, there is a long blog about it from the developer direct. And if you want to try it out, have a look at it. The other thing we have implemented just recently is the integration of Google Workspace. So Google Sheets instead of Excel into SAP GUI for HTML. So we can now export, for example, if you have an ALV grid, you can export the data out of that ALV grid, not only to an Excel file, but also to a Google Doc. And therefore you need to set up your integration between Google Docs and your backend system first, because of course you need your user account on Google to do that. You need a company account on Google if you want to use SAP document management integration and pass documents back and forth there. And you need to connect the dots that the backend system is able to create those files there. So it's a bit of configuration to do there, but then you can use your ALV, and if you export a spreadsheet from the ALV grid, you can directly export it to Google. What we also did is, you can see it in the right upper corner, you can now, like you're used to in the SAP GUI with Control Y, you can create such a lasso control where you can just mark a part of an ABAP list, an ALV grid, or of a search help, and just copy it with Control C and paste it, for example, to Excel, and it will paste it with the fields, with the delimiters and everything back and forth. You can also copy it from Excel and paste it into ALV. Like you're used to do this in SAP GUI for Windows. It's pretty new. So having said that, you can do that with the search help. We also aligned our search help field in SAP GUI for HTML to make it look exactly like it looks in UI5 and in WebDim Pro ABAP. So that, as I said before, you shouldn't even recognize what UI technology is actually running. And so we're trying our best to make it look, we try to make our best to make 20 or 30-year-old applications look exactly like the UI5s you are using just from yesterday. It's a hard job to do, but where sometimes we're pretty good in that. Sometimes the applications are just too complex to make everything perfect, but with the search help, it works perfectly. And there you get also the grid with the results where you can use the laser control on that. We also added just recently sound support. Like you probably know, the SAP GUI for Windows with that bings and bongs it is always doing. You can now, if you want, if you really want, you can switch it on in SAP GUI for HTML too. And we have added support for access keys also there. Then we have a couple of visual improvements on the GUI floor plan. Again, to harmonize even more with the color scheme of UI5 apps. We added the font that is used in UI5. We changed a bit, flipped background colors because they were differently than in UI5. And we also implemented the content security policy on level 3 now. And of course, new theme horizon. Then one thing we did, it was already a while ago, we added touch support for SAP GUI for HTML. We did it a while ago, but I still want to mention it because that's the only way to run SAP GUI on a touch device. Or yeah, on a touch device, that's not completely true because if you have a laptop with touch, you can also touch it with the SAP GUI for Windows. But let's say on a tablet, if you have an iPad, you can run SAP GUI for HTML on the iPad. We can't change the application here. So if you have an application that is even on a 27-inch screen hard to work on because it's so crowded with screen elements, it will be even more crowded on a 10-inch tablet. Of course, we can't change that because we have no understanding of the application. So we have no application logic we can interfere. We are only UI technology, but we can render it. And if you have an application that is useful to do it, or if you build your own transactions in C namespace, you can probably build a light version that is also running on touch-based devices or smaller devices. We are only releasing it for tablets, but of course, since it's the same technology, it also runs on your phone, but that's doubling or tripling the problem. Phone screen is so small that there's practically no GUI screen that is usefully worked on a phone. But if you have your own transactions and you have really stripped them down to only a handful of screen elements, you can also run them on your iPhone. And only 2 words on the SAP GUI for Java. It doesn't really fit into that presentation today because it doesn't integrate, neither in the Fiori Launchpad nor in the Business Client. But I still wanted to mention it because it's widely used on Mac users. And I just want to emphasize one thing. We have just released a new version on the SAP GUI for Java. The 8.10 version is just released. And if you're a Mac user and if you want to upgrade, now is the time to do that. And with that, I would hand over to Sandra.
Oh, that was fast. Thanks, Ralf, for your description of the navigation part forth and back between the different UI technologies. I think the Business Client is capable of doing it. And thanks for mentioning some good reasons to stick with the SAP GUI for Windows. This is, yeah, good for the Business Client. Yeah, my name is Sandra Timme, working in Upper Platform Product Management. And I think I should share my screen. Sorry for that. Sharing and now full screen. And going back to my slide. There it is. Is it okay like this?
Looks good to me.
Yeah, I hope for everybody else as well. Okay, so yeah, everybody knows the SAP GUI for Windows. For those never heard of SAP Business Client, the SAP Business Client is a desktop client to launch SAP business applications. The business client has been developed with the aim to integrate different UI technologies in one shell. A shell similar to a browser shell, although it's a desktop client. The UI technologies integrated are, of course, SAP GUI for Windows, web and pop-up applications, floor plan manager applications, and finally SAP Fiori applications. But not only SAP Fiori applications, it's possible to integrate the SAP Fiori Launchpad as a whole. And we'll see later on with the current version 8.00, even the cloud integration is an option together with the business client. Coming from the business suite or suite on HANA, a common question customers keep asking us is how we can best transition users to the new UX, because the go-to UX for S4HANA is Fiori, of course. So how can we do this? And especially how we can transition SAP GUI invested users, customers with a considerable history in using ERP and a very large footprint in SAP GUI for Windows. So how can they transition to the new UX? How to make the transition as smooth as possible? And many customers are thinking that they have to choose the Fiori Launchpad in the browser standalone version to benefit from all the S4HANA innovations and the new UI features, but then missing out the SAP GUI for Windows. Or some users think they'd like to stick forever with the SAP GUI for Windows. And yes, as Ralph already mentioned, there are good reasons to stay with the SAP GUI for Windows. But fortunately, the thing is, the question is not either or. It's not either FLP standalone in the browser or only SAP GUI for Windows. It's both. With the SAP Business Client, you can have both. SAP's recommendation here is to consider using SAP Business Client Launchpad connection on desktop to retain the best of two worlds. State-of-the-art SAP Fiori applications and SAP GUI for Windows transactions combined in one smart shell. Using this approach with Business Client, any GUI transaction on the FLP launches the transaction in GUI for Windows. In addition, you could use SAP GUI for Windows the connection type SAP Logon. For example, for legacy systems, very old systems where you can access them, but again, together in one shell and with tab navigation within the business client. Regarding the S4HANA client options, customers can decide how to access their business application via browser or via business client. And to make the right decision here, you have to analyze your landscape. You have to analyze your use cases, and you have to check the expectation from your end users. What do they need? As Ralph already mentioned, are they using transactions, set transactions? Are are they in partner business using partner transactions? Do they need their familiar GUI transactions, or is the web GUI SAP GUI for HTML enough? And depending on the answers to those questions, you can choose your connections in the business client. And for S/4HANA and for the integration with S/4HANA, to get all the new UI features, to get the Launchpad within the business client, the recommendation of SAP is to use the SAP Fiori Launchpad connection within business client, as you can see it here. Choosing this connection type, the SAP Fiori Launchpad connection type, you can use your Launchpad as you would do in the browser. With all these features, functionalities, the shell is delivering, the business client shell is delivering. The integrated search notification area is available. Everything is available as in the Launchpad. There are some minor restrictions. It's documented in the documentation and in several notes. With the SAP GUI for business, SAP GUI for Windows transactions within the business client, you get the system information from the shell, and you can enter your T-code your transaction code directly here into the quick launch and open the transactions via the code. As mentioned before, with the current version 8.00, it's possible to integrate the SAP Build workzone on BTP, Cloud Foundry. And yeah, it's possible to integrate the standard and advanced edition. So even in the cloud, it's possible to mix standard state-of-the-art web applications with SAP GUI transactions. Therefore, a TCP ping to the remote systems must be performed at time the application shall be started. And if this is possible, the transaction will be launched in SAP GUI for Windows. The details where it's described how it works, you can find here in a blog and in several tutorials, for example, in SAP Tutorial Navigator. You can try it out on the BTP trial version. And if you do so, your feedback will be highly appreciated. So finally, a few words regarding the versions and the timeline. As mentioned, the current version is 8.0. The focus here has been on Edge. The Edge control depends on the Microsoft WebView 2 runtime, starting with Windows 11. The runtime is already part of the operating system, so you don't have to patch the business client. You don't have to update the business client yourself. The security patches are coming automatically via the operating system. The default theme has been Quartz. The theme designer is supported. Regarding the SAP Fiori UX integration, we offer in-place navigation. With the former versions, this wasn't possible, but as always, we try to close the gap between the desktop client and the web browser. So in-place navigation has been possible with the Fiori Launchpad in the browser standalone, and now it's possible as well within the business client. but you are not forced to use this navigation approach. You can also switch it back if you don't like it. As mentioned, the SAP workzone integration and some minor UX enhancements. What's expected with 8.10? It's all about Horizon with the next version. Horizon in hybrid landscapes, Horizon with the SAP GUI for Windows, and custom themes based on Horizon. Some UX enhancements again. For example, the restore mechanism in case of crashes, rounded corners following the Windows 11 design. Looks very nice. And as Ralph mentioned before, the beta is planned together with SAP GUI for Windows in Q2 2025. A short glance at the timeline, because it's high time to make an update for all those customers still on 770. Because it's outdated in April. So it's really time to update. Just a reminder to do so. I have some tips for you. This one, I think it's very important because there's a very easy approach to get existing GUI transactions where the users are authorized to use. You can get them into the Launchpad on the homepage via the App Finder. The App Finder is here in the user settings menu. You just have to click it, choose the App Finder, and then via clicking and pinning the transactions, they will be displayed in the user's homepage. So this is really very easy because you get access here to your user menu. And so this is really a very convenient approach to get the transactions into your Launchpad very, very fast if it's configured before from the administrator. And how this will work is documented here in this blog. And again, please try it out, check it out, and give us your feedback. Your feedback is really highly appreciated. So, and last but not least, there is another channel to give us feedback, not only feedback, it's to make suggestions regarding the business client, not only the business client, SAP GUI for Windows as well, because we are part from this continuous influence portal right now, since not a long time ago. And there you can create your requests, and then we will see together with development what we can do. So thank you for listening. That's it from my side. And now I think we have time for some questions and hopefully the answers to them.
I think Ralph was kind enough to answer all the questions that came up in the chat. Note to our participants, if you have any questions regarding the session, our speakers are still here. You can post them in the chat and they'll be able to answer them. Okay, I guess we don't have any further questions, but again, thank you so much, Ralph and Sandra, for the wonderful session. It was very clear and very exciting to see all the different suggestions, tips, and all the details that you had shown in the session. I'm sure our participants will also enjoy watching this. So a note to the participants, if you are not able to post the questions now, you can even post the questions later as comments here, or even in the events page of the SAP community. And I think now we have one question. Sandra or Ralph, would you like to take it up?
I'm sorry, but I'm not able to see the questions right now. I have to check.
I can read it for you. The first question is it a good approach to only use the Fiori app for the future with S/4HANA?
Well, I may take that. If you can, then good. But the strategy of S/4HANA is not UI5 apps only, but it's yeah, as I said, the whole package you're getting if you install an S/4HANA system that consists of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of transactions, of applications, of application components, plus all that stuff you have bought from a partner or developed yourself. And you cannot just say, I want to have VA01, for example, as a Fiori app, because it's just not there. Because in S/4HANA, if you need the functionality of the VA01, you will be dropped into the SAP GUI for HTML or the SAP GUI for Windows. And if you have a workflow that comes around with only UI5 applications, then good, then you can run it only with UI5, with Fiori apps. If not, then not. So that is the whole point behind my story, is that there is not only one UI technology in S/4HANA, but we have 3 of them. And if you want to have the full functionality, you need to incorporate all 3 of them. And if you want to get the latest innovations from S/4HANA, which is S/4HANA providing to you, and which is the most effort the colleagues from S/4HANA are doing are in integrating applications to each other and working with pre-directed or orchestrated workflows. And if you want to follow those workflows, you have to use all the UI technologies which are in that workflow. There's no way to not choose that. If that answers the question. The next one would be for Sandra, I guess. Let me read that. Do you have a demonstration to really see how it works when you switch from BSET work zone to SAP GUI transaction, for example?
In the work zone. Okay.
Yeah,
yes. We provide a YouTube video. I can send a link. There is a YouTube video on it. The work zone. Okay. Yes. We provide. I can send.
That's probably an echo I'm just hearing.
Yes, I have an echo. I don't know what happened.
Well, anyway, since we don't have any further questions at the moment, well, I would hand back to Sheena to wrap it up.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Ralph and Sandra, again, for the wonderful session and for answering all your questions. And just again, to all our participants, if you are watching the recording, then you can post the questions as comments here or in the events page of SAP community. And the slide decks used today and the validation tutorials will be updated shortly in the description box of this video. So don't forget to check it out. And once again, thanks everyone for attending this session and stay tuned for more. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
All right.